It is June, and we are on the move here at the Voice of College Football because recruits all across the country are certainly on the move, and we are keeping up so you don't have to pull up for the next, I don't know, 60, 90, whatever it turns out to be. We will leave the call-in line there in the chat. Give us a ring, and we will talk recruiting. We'll talk college football with you overall, whatever you've got on your mind. But, of course, LeeAnn's got the intel. You can catch her on a regular basis at Cat's Wire and the Rebel Walk, as well as the Voice of College Football. But this is the spot to be on the move every Wednesday night. LeeAnn, how you doing?
Doing good. Trying to take the breath. We did a little bit of recruiting coup yesterday, kind of previewing. Even though the dead period is in full swing for the next couple of weeks as we end June, it's definitely going to come with a bang. A lot of recruiting surges happening right now. Mark, of course, we talked a little bit about Florida State, Texas A&M, and the College Station is definitely bumping two back-to-back big commitments. Of course, we know that some of the industry rankings have come out on three releasing some of its top programs recruiting wise, breaking down the SEC, and of course, none other than Texas A&M. We'll see where they fall, but they fall pretty high earlier. Mike Elko was barely knocking on the door at top 10, but from what's been happening, the Aggies have been rolling down in College Station. We'll be talking a little bit more about their recent back-to-back recruits today. And we mentioned it a little bit. There's been a lot of Kentucky fans definitely hoping that basketball season is here sooner than later. Not too much glimmers of hope in that Kentucky football program, but man, talk about changing its course. Mike Elko and his staff have really, uh, you know, got the bull by the horns down in Lexington and have really created some momentum. A lot of success in the last couple weeks. They've had back-to-back commitments. They earned another big time defensive lineman again out of the Lone Star State earlier today. And they are setting themselves up, Mark, as the QB dominoes in this 2026 class have fallen. They are setting themselves up for possibly one of the top elite quarterbacks coming out of the Midwest. And of course, we have some other rubbings. Oregon finally gets and lands another QB. And we have some other guys that are getting off the board here soon. We have some rumblings. Guys are setting down their top teams as they're settling from their official visits. And so let's gear up and see what's ahead.
Let's do it. And we'll remind everyone again, comments and questions are welcome there in the chat, and we will leave the call-in line available for you as well. All right, LeeAnn, close to home, Texas A&M, couple linemen in the fold, and we've got Zayden Krempin to start off the show.
Zayden Krempin out of Prosper, Texas, along with Avery Morcho. These are two guys that the Aggies have been looking to keep to home, and they definitely did that today, of course, kicking off the day with Avery Morcho, top offensive lineman. Then Zayden Krempin follows later, another top offensive tackle coming out of the state of Texas. They clinched that today. So, again, this is a huge win for the Aggies in the trenches. And, of course, we know On Three today releasing its top recruiting classes following these official visits, and they kind of broke down the SEC and the rough, tough, real stuff. Texas A&M, as that Aggie war hymn goes, are definitely proving to ring true. Mike Elko in his second year really looks to finally have a consistent hold on this program, and they are right now are ranking as far as the SEC schools are concerned, they are holding the cake and all the marbles at the number one spot with the number one 92 overall 92.6 overall grade in those on three rankings as far as SEC. They have already a total of 21 commitments in this 2026 class, boasted from 1 5-star, 17 4-stars, and 3 high 3-stars. Of course, we know that the top commit coming out of College Station for the Aggies has been the most coveted corner, the number national 9 player, and Brandon Arrington, and of course the number 1 corner being their top highest ranking recruit right now. And right now, overall in the national scope of things, the Aggies, as far as the on three rankings, have the number 2 overall class. So again, this was a team that Mike Elko was really lurking into that top 10, and it seems that the last couple days they've really surged and they've really made a prowess. And I don't think that Texas A&M is far from done. This has been a long debate. We know that the Aggies historically have had no problem attracting the top talent across the board, but again, things from from this discontinuity to just it seemed like they were always all over their place, and as much as talented they have, it never really resonated and translated. So again, this class will not be an immediate fix, we know, but looking ahead, Mike Elko is really setting the Aggies up. Some of the other guys, of course, we know that have committed, that have really boosted this class. Aside from Brandon Arrington, of course, four-star coveted running back KJ Edwards, the number 4 running back in the country, four-star edge Tristan Givens, of course, a pair of wide receivers that we've talked a lot about, Aaron Gregory, Jonathan Hatton, another top coveted running back, another top quarterback in Victor Singleton, and of course today, rounding it out was Aiden Krempin, top offensive lineman right from the backyard, and Avery Morcho. Again, I think the Aggies are setting themselves well up. And as if you notice, this is not just a class that Mike Elko is putting with simply 5 stars and 4 stars. He's really addressing needs that the Aggies have had to replace. And I think the way he's balanced out this roster, the way he's approached a lot of this young talent, I have seen a lot of this talent on this current roster. And let me tell you, there's very few kids that I could say that translate immediately. And while some of these guys, maybe some of these offensive linemen, may not be starters when they get on campus, they have a ton of skill set, I believe, to be able to be in this race. So Mike Elko really making a jump ahead this June, capitalizing on the recruiting trail. So again, the Aggies well on their way to securing that #1 class. And I do believe now, with some players returning ahead and them setting themselves up for the future, the Aggies might have finally found their formula to make things translate on the field and not just have the top class money can buy, but the top elite talent that will translate down the road.
Absolutely. And that's something obviously that Mike Elko took a lot of pride in as soon as he stepped on campus, leaving Texas A&M as defensive coordinator, taking over as head coach at Duke, and basically took the same roster that won David Cutcliffe, who I've got a ton of respect for, but had lost his fastball at that point at the end of his career, and took David Cutcliffe's roster at Duke and turned a team that had lost like 16 out of 17 consecutive games in the ACC to 8 and 9 win finishes over the next 2 years. And now Elko obviously back at Texas A&M and running into some of the players that he recruited his first go around as DC. And then, as LeeAnn has stated, not just putting together a rankings impressive class, but a style, fit, scheme, and culture impressive class at this point in 2026. All right, let's run down another team. Then we'll take a call here because we do have a quarterback situation here with a couple different teams. But first and foremost, it's not a done deal yet, but Kentucky thinks that they've got their man from, and this has been a theme in Mark Stoops' tenure at Kentucky, going north of the border while everybody else in the SEC is staying in the footprint, going up to Ohio possibly.
Kentucky has really been thirsty for a quarterback. We know that they've had some talent, but one phrase that has been consistent since my time covering Kentucky, they've really just had this Jekyll kind of Hyde with lack of consistency. There's always been talent, but they've never really found their guy. Again, much like I said with Texas A&M, this will not be immediate fix, obviously, because this will be a potential 2026 signing. But Kentucky has really surged of late as of June. Mike Elko and his team have really got up there. And before I talk about the touted Archbishop Mueller quarterback that they could very well be setting themselves up for, I mean, let's just talk about what Mike Elko's done. He's turned a very grim situation along with his recruiting staff. Coach Washington and some other coaches there that have really been hitting the trail. Like I said, been talking to some of the Kentucky prospects, some of their recent commits, and they just say that even though there's been a lot of twists and turns and a lot of tumultuous time right now with the personnel change and decommitments and just the culture kind of seeming grim, that they feel that there's going to be this surge. It's really going to be based on a lot of young talent, and that's really why they found Kentucky attractive. Just in the last 2 weeks and just in the last 24 hours, they've had commitments coming out of course, Texas. Texas historically has been a tough place for even the best of the SEC programs, but it's all about relationships and roots. And Kentucky and Kentucky and Mark Stoops, along with his staff, have really found a way, maybe not to go out and get the elite and the talent of the Lone Star State, but they've really been successful in really getting a footprint for the Kentucky Wildcats down the Lone Star State, of course, earning the commitment out of Katy Tigers football program star Isaiah McMillan, Dallas Dickerson, the wide receiver out of Georgia, and of course today earlier Ben Duncombe out of Lake Travis, a touted defensive lineman, another recruit from Texas that they earned the commitment today, and all of them just say, you know, they have really what that really stood out for them was the opportunity to play early, to be an impact early, and most of all to be a fit. And they really feel after talking with the coaches, these are all different players from different regions, and a lot of them coming out of big programs like Katy and Lake Travis are huge programs here in Texas. So they know about the winning culture. So for a lot of these kids, for them to go to a place like Kentucky when it's in this state is not necessarily the most attractive. But again, a lot of these players said they feel like there's a light at the end of this tunnel, and it begins with a lot of the young talent. And we already know that this 2026 class, Mark, has been saturated with a lot of talented quarterbacks. Of course, you know the names that we've talked a lot about, but I feel in this late surge, as the dominoes fall, as we have wound up with the, you know, just wrapped up with the Elite 11, and then we have some other rivals camps going on, and OT7 championship, that some of the quarterbacks that have really kind of surged after the Elite 11, especially, have really been taking a front. And what as the dominoes fall, we've already seen some other big programs who take QBs off the board. It's really set the tone, and it might actually be a win for Kentucky and Mark Stoops when I'm talking about this next guy. We've talked a little bit about him in a quarterback, Matt Ponataski. He is looking, hasn't set his current decision, but like I said, as Alabama and programs like Oregon just recently got and have their 2026 quarterbacks, it looks like it really has set up Mark Stoops and the Kentucky Wildcats in good position to possibly get this commitment. Kentucky has always been one of those teams. Oscar Rios, of course, was another quarterback that has committed elsewhere, but they were always on the top of the radar. But now it seems that after the dominoes have fallen, that Matt Ponatowski could be the guy down the road that the Kentucky Wildcats have been patiently waiting for as far as a QB talented, fresh off the Elite 11. I mean, when you watch his film from the Elite 11. He is probably one of the most accurate guys, you know, from the jump. And this is what we're talking about. Origa had guys like Keyshawn Henderson, Faison Brandon, Dia Bell, you know, the top commits that we talk about. And he really gave him a run for his money. I mean, he just made each of his throw extremely accurate, look, you know, effortless. Like I said, he was one of the most accurate, if not most accurate passers consistently across the board, going head to head with those names. And like I said, from the moment he was on that field, you could see how he was just knew exactly how to impeccably place his passes. And again, this is another kid who's played dual sports, Gatorade Player of the Year. He had a real finesse when it came to goal line throws, Mark, from watching him on his field. And again, he just showed really meticulous technical skills and just an overall high football IQ and an innate understanding of the game. He's mechanically sound, and he just has lightning fast footwork when you watch his film, from his game film to what we saw at Elite 11. And I think his physical attributes, just compared with his skills, could be a huge, huge, much needed win for Kentucky down the road. And like I said, with Alabama and Oregon finding their quarterbacks, and those were also two potential landing spots for Matt. It looks like with them finding their guys for 2026, that it definitely opens the way for a strong favorite. And the feeling has always been mutual. Ponataski has always been high up on the Kentucky board, but it also has also been high up on his board. So again, no commitment date set, but we do hear it's drawing near. But from what we're hearing after Elite 11 and from what other programs have done, that it's definitely setting Kentucky up in a great shape to finally land an elite quarterback in Matt Ponataski out of Cincinnati.
Let's check in on the Big Ten and another quarterback situation involving Oregon. Of course, they lost one of the best in the nation in Dylan Gabriel from last season. Dante Moore is the guy that will lead them for another couple years, we would expect. But then they're going to have to go into the future, possibly with a guy that has just committed to the Ducks, and Dan Lanning and Bryson Beaver.
Bryson Beaver is another kid, fresh off the Elite 11. He has always been kind of an under the radar guy. He really took a surge just prior to him showing up at Elite 11. Um, he did a private throwing for Oregon, and that's where he learned his offer. But soon after, Alabama and Ole Miss, and I got to talk to Bryson following his Ole Miss visit. Kind of, we talked specifically about Ole Miss, but heading into what he'd be looking for, he said he was just looking for a program that gave him the chance to compete at the highest level and had an offense mark that fits his skill with coaches that were committed to developing their QBs. If we look at his stats from his junior season, he completed over 66% of his passes for 314 yards and 33 touchdowns. He did have 6 INTs, but he balanced that with 411 yards of rushing, 6 more scores, and again, it was a tough race. But this is a guy who really got on the radar, was offered late by programs like Ole Miss. We know that Ole Miss has one commitment in their 2026 class race wise, but possibly looking to get another guy in Bryson Beaver. Like I had him out there. We're really high up on him. Alabama, but again, these guys came late in the mix. But he was talking about, how it was going to be a tough decision down the stretch, especially. But you could kind of tell when he mentioned Oregon kind of coming in, there was just something about it that seemed like they had the edge in there. And when it was all said and done, despite Ole Miss and Alabama coming in from the SEC, it was Oregon and Dan Lanning that he looks to develop with and continue to boost his skills. But again, a private throwing led to an offer, and from them, the rest is history.
All right. Once again, couple schools looking at quarterbacks. Kentucky targeted for one, Matt Ponataski, but that's not a done deal, but expected. And then again, with Oregon, they do get the commit today from the guy that you see right on the screen going downfield, Bryson Beaver. All right. We got a call coming in here at the Voice of College Football. Again, we want to remind everyone it's every Wednesday with LeeAnn. In the week, though, between Wednesdays, you can catch LeeAnn at Cat's Wire and also at the Rebel Walk as well. And right here at the Voice of College Football. And we will get you all of LeeAnn's information so you can find her very easily on a Twitter/X. All right. Got a call coming in here from our guy, Dan. Dan, what's going on today?
Yeah. Good evening, Mark. Good evening, LeeAnn. How's everybody doing this evening?
Doing good, Dan.
Yeah, LeeAnn, I just want to get something off my chest because this is something I've been wanting to ask you, particularly just on the defensive side. Looking at recruits from the 2026 class, I mean, in my honest opinion, I feel like the defensive recruiting class of 26 is not, in my opinion, like I know these kids are good, but I just like wish there was that one recruit that just put the fear of God in a in the I don't even know, just like somebody like with the mentality of Ray Lewis. I need the God-driven fear of somebody like Cam Chancellor, somebody like that to come out of the recruiting class. Like I miss those recruits, the recruits that just shake, the college world of recruiting. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's this one genetic freak out of this class that's so dang good. And it's like everybody wants to come after this kid. I'm like, where are those types of kids? Where's those types of recruits? Because it's like nobody in the world of college football is trying to go after recruits like that. Somebody somebody with the mentality and the strength, like the hard-hitting like ability of Ray Lewis or the tackling ability of Terrell Suggs. It seems like colleges are like not even going after those kinds of defensive recruits whatsoever. Not even somebody with like the skills of a defensive back like Brian Dawkins, Sean Taylor, Adrian Wilson, NFL legends. Like, where are those recruits? Like, that was just the one primarily thing I wanted to get off my chest to you. Because I feel like college football is just missing those types of recruits.
Well, let me tell you, from being on the recruiting trail and working with some defensive linemen to begin with, the pool, especially here in Texas, where I help recruit and scout, those kids do exist. But most of the time, with the way things are right now, we don't always hear about those kids until we get them either through the transfer portal or till they get onto college setting. But let me tell you, there are plenty of those kids right now. And I think really the players right now that are really surging are the secondary players, a lot of the two-way players, cornerbacks. I mean, some of the kids that we're talking about that really may not have that are not being recruited on the defensive and offensive line. Some of the most talented kids that I see with this raw ability that are playing multiple positions and are just playing as nasty and cold as some of those things you described are not coming out of defensive linemen. They're coming out from kids that are playing two-way, like a kid we're going to talk about here later out of Houston and Paris Melvin, North Shore's Chas Calicut, another top athlete. These are kids that are not just emerging as two-way players, but they're taking snaps at corner, at the edge, at wide receiver. So again, those kids are out there, but I think a lot of the times the focus gets talked a lot about the kids that are ranked in the stars. But I spend a lot of time trying to feature as well the kids that you talk about, because there's plenty of out there and they're hungry. But a lot of the times they don't get seen right away through high school. So they have to take other avenues, whether it be going to a smaller program, a JUCO, and then hitting the transfer portal. And then you hear about them when they get to college.
Yeah, LeeAnn, because I wanted to ask you, because this was a question I wanted to ask you because of a dear friend of mine who played defensive line for Madison Plains High School out of London, Ohio, Luke Mason. I don't know if you heard of his name, Luke Mason. He was he quoted to me like, the NCAA is soft on recruiting because they will not go after the guys like that have the heart and soul of just guys that came before them. Like I said, Justin Tuck, DeMarcus Ware, Chris Canny, Darnell Dockett, Javon Kurtz. It seems like colleges don't take that risk because they feel like these kids are either, I don't even know what the word, dangerous or just uncontrollable. Because they may feel like, oh, like I do this certain way because I like to hurt people. Okay, well, you play defensive line because you're trying to sack the quarterback, or you play middle linebacker. You know what I mean? And that's just coming from a defensive lineman who I know personally, a defensive lineman who played high school football that I know personally from home. So that's just kind of why I wanted to bring it up.
Well, well, the NCAA is not the one recruiting; it's the coaches going out there recruiting. And I think that every, there's different criteria for every coach that they go out there in the program fit, and they're looking for things. And again, you have to remember these kids coming out of high school, they play for different programs, different things. Everyone has different values. There's no aligned system. But again, I'll reassure you that there's kids out there that are hungry in those things. But again, we don't often talk about them because they're not always the most showcased until they find a way, till they have, like Mark and I say all the time, till they have that moment into that stage. But I guarantee you that coaches are by no means not recruiting. I talk with plenty of coaches that, will talk to me about players, they won't take them because, hey, they need more weight, or hey, they need more anger in them. So believe me, those are things that are still very much in consideration when looking. I mean, I've gone and I've talked with coaches that have, find an ideal edge, but they want to see him play offensive tackle. He's at 6'3", but, they really want him to be 6'3" and maybe add 10 pounds, because they want him to be more physical. So again, there's so many more details now, because across the board, when it comes to defensive linemen, I really feel like you have to be a lot more meticulous, especially with offensive linemen, because you have to go about it a certain way.
And there's one problem, and there's the one word that I feel like coaches kind of underestimate in some kids: anger. Because there's a lot of kids with a lot of anger, especially a lot of guys that I know personally that play defensive line. And I'm talking mostly the defensive line of the group, defensive linemen, linebackers, safeties, corners. They got a lot of anger built up in those kids, but it's just some of the coaches of college football are afraid to come and get these types of kids, is because they, either have the traits of somebody like let's say the late great Sean Taylor, a hard hitter. He's got size. Somebody like Cam Chancellor, 6'4", 230. He looks like he played middle linebacker, but that guy could hit you at 22 mile an hour, full speed. Somebody that'll crack the shoulder pads of a receiver or a tight end, about a 6'5" tight end. That's the problem where I'm like, college coaches are not paying attention to. They aren't paying attention to these guys that will break the window and just be like, shock, like make the air go out of the stadium. Like, where are those guys? It seems like they don't even go after them. And it's just an honest problem. I don't even know if coaches are even looking at those guys anymore. It seems like it's a far breed that's lost. ever since, the era, like the NFL has gone to the whole offensive soft for offensive alignment. They want to protect quarterbacks more. And it seems like you can't, because it's so regulated for defensive players, especially. Because I've spoken to a lot of people that play defensive lineman, linebacker, middle linebacker, cornerback, safety. I know a lot of kids that, play those positions. I'm friends with a lot of kids that play those positions. I mean, I know 6 defensive linemen, 5 linebackers, 3 safeties, 3 cornerbacks. I've heard every single one of them told me the exact same thing, that coaches are afraid to come after some of them is because either they don't fit, their attitude doesn't fit their policy, is what most of them have told me, or they can't, or even it's just because of size. Let me bring up a story of an Ohio State linebacker, Hall of Famer, Chris Spielman. He was undersized for a middle linebacker, but the guy could play 60 minutes, no quit. And he took him as far as they did. And Bruce, he loved Chris Spielman. I mean, now he's in the Ohio State Football Hall of Fame. Andy Ketzenmoyer, middle linebacker, 6'3", 260 pounds, rejected by 21 schools. Ohio State gave him the only full ride scholarship. And for 4 years, Andy Ketzenmoyer put the fear of God in every single person in the Big Ten and played his heart out. 3-time Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year award winner. And he was 260 pounds playing at middle linebacker, but he ran as hard and as fast as a safety. I mean, where are those guys that make a big impact, but at the same time, and I don't know, Mark can disagree with me, you can disagree with me, and I love to debate with this about y'all, but I mean, Mark's probably about to kick my car because out of here, so I'll let you get going. But think about that, LeeAnn, because sometimes, honestly, I just feel like I said, college coaches are afraid to just, look under the rug, look in the dark, you know what I mean? It seems like when you look in the dark, it seems like it's one of those unknown answers you don't know. Like, it could be bad, or hell, it could be even worse. Let me know. I'm going to be discussing it in the next couple of days on a radio show. So, you know what I mean? I'm
No,
sorry,
just
I'm having a bit of mental issues.
No, you're good. You're good. And I definitely can understand, like, it's funny you bring up the attributes, because there's a kid that I work with right now. And he fits all those things. He plays at the edge right now. They want to see him as a D tackle. There's plenty of big time programs knocking on his door. No one wants to pull the trigger. And there's, a lot of things. Well, but he needs to do this and he needs to do that. But when you see him, he's got so many physical attributes. He still has, going into his junior year. It's not that I don't think that coaches are looking for those kind of players, but I do believe that there has to be a balance, especially now with the culture, because there's a lot of kids that you to play in the offensive and defensive line, there has to be a trigger. There has to be a nasty coldness to be able to do what those guys do in the trenches. And like I always say, you can't get it done without the big guys up front. But there also has to be an ability to turn that off. And I think that coaches, it's not that they don't want to recruit those guys with that nasty, that anger, but there has to be an on and off switch. And some guys, unfortunately, can't turn that on and off switch when it comes. And you also have to consider, with the state of college football, with the state of the way it's going, those are, you have to consider that as part of, an attribute when you're recruiting a kid. He's got great talent, but maybe his attitude is not coachable. Maybe those things, because there's a lot of kids I see day in and day out that are extremely, extremely athletic and talent, but they are not coachable. And that kind of energy of those kind of kids can resonate to the rest of your line. I've seen it. Behind closed doors, where there have kids that have been extremely talented that have caused voids and a lot of tension within programs because of their attitude that they can't turn off, or their uncoachability. And going back to the, other thing, you want a guy nasty on the line, but you also have to think, as a lineman, you have to have a technical guy, like you said, that can move and to do all these things. And those are hard to come by these days, because a lot of these kids aren't fully developed as far as, or they are really coached in one sort of scheme, especially when it comes to the defensive line. We know that there's a lot of different schemes, and sometimes, elite defensive linemen don't find that success. Same thing with offensive linemen. It's not easy to go get you a winning lineman, because, again, they have to translate onto the field. So, again, it's not that I don't think coaches are looking for these skills. I think that they just have to be a little bit more meticulous, because you're not throwing a lot of money. You don't have a lot of options to go out there and get offensive and defensive linemen the same way that you go acquire wide receivers and quarterbacks. It's not one of those positions that you can just go take a lot of guys. So you have to be meticulous when you're scouting and coaching. And one kid may be really physical, but he may not have good hands. He may be not strong off the block. So yeah, he knows how to tackle and block, but can he do that in a refined sense? Can he do that well enough to protect my quarterback, or is he doing it in a fit of rage? And then my quarterback still has open gap, still is vulnerable. So do you see what I mean in that regard? So it's not easy. You have to look at the details and be meticulous. So yeah, you want to go get someone out there who knows how to hit and tackle, but he also has to learn how to control that, be coachable, and also have those skills for his size and his frame to be able to do things meticulously and be precision. Be precision with it when it comes to
Be
a skill. So
precise and
that's not
everything.
a
I understand what you mean, LeeAnn, but there's one key quality in a defensive lineman, and just like the names of Hall of Famers I mentioned, James Harrison, Terrell Suggs, guys like that I grew up watching, the guys who I studied their pass rushing game off of. Where's the guys that'll yell across the line and tell the quarterback, "I'm going to kick your butt so bad that you ain't going to see the field on another day, or I'm going to come after you so hard"? Where are those guys that got that really nasty attitude, like that guys I grew up watching? Guys who played college football before me, guys who paved the way before us. This is why I tell people, if you're going to play college football and you're going to stand out like some of the guys I grew up with and some of the guys I watched high school football, that's just nasty, mean. Guys who got the attitude. It's just like I said, colleges are afraid. They are afraid to come after these guys because they know the risk is bigger, but the reward is what gets them a national championship, because there's, as the following quote says, defenses wins championships. And if you don't have the right guys on defense with the right set of mind, with the right set of skill, but also add a little extra nastiness into the recipe, because you want a defense that will make sure people recognize on a college football team for the rest of a decade. That makes Georgia had 2 years where they had guys that were just nasty sons of guns, blow people out left and right. I don't need to remind anybody about Georgia. Like 100%. Oh, heck no, I don't need to. And if you even ask my friend who played defensive lineman for Fairbanks, Tanner Ufferman and Grant Roush, ask those guys exactly what I mean, because they will tell you 100% of everything I'm telling you is dang true. Mark, I see your smirk. But here's the other thing. Even ask my friend Corey Wimbrick, number 24 of Fairbanks, former safety for Fairbanks High School. The dude could run at you like 22 miles an hour, but the dude was as nasty as Sean Taylor. He knocked out punters left and right. Ask him. Ask his teammates, guys who I grew up with. Ask the kids from Madison Plains I grew up, the Mason brothers. I mean, even the Green brothers I played with.
Dan, all right. You've been talking forever. You got your point across. I don't want to say it's a valid point. I don't know that it is or it's not, but you brought us a lot of great information and insight. So I will say this, Dan, let's keep a few things under consideration here.
You know what, Mark? I'm going to get my carcass out of here because I feel like I ain't worth talking.
Okay. Dan wasn't ready for me to respond to his rant. So I'm not going to respond since he obviously has left us. But I will say one thing. Let's also understand that there have been rules changes in this game. Like, he's citing Chris Spielman from the mid-1980s and what players were able to do then, even 10 years ago, that they're not able to do right now. And in playing a more physical style of football, let's keep that under consideration. So they've been trained differently as they've been brought through the system.
I mean, nowadays you get fined and you get all these types of things for being overly excessive on the sidelines, celebration. So yeah, that's a good point. It's just, you would love to see those hard hitting guys, and they do exist. I mean, I guarantee you, Walter Nolan was not recruited by Randall Joyner and Lake Kiffin because he was too soft. If you saw that kid, he was a kid, when you see him, he looks like a big teddy bear, but I guarantee you, he was not afraid to talk down a quarterback and hit him when the time came to it. And that was my biggest point. I think, and then also in the high school realm too, Mark, there's been a lot of changes and rule changes as far as playing. There's been a lot more protection when it comes to the quarterbacks and all that kind of. I guarantee you those kids exist. I watch them every day. I recruit and scout them every day. They know how to turn it on, but at the same time, one of the biggest things, that you have to look for, it's not just about having a nasty attitude. Anybody can go over there and talk some shit across the line, but can they do it and make it worth it? I can sit there and I can make jokes and all that kind of stuff, and I can hit you really hard, but the thing is, can you find that guy that can unleash that, but while doing that, be quick on his hips, be able to change direction, be able to and those are the things that aren't easy to find. You can find those a dime a dozen when you're looking at a wide receiver and a quarterback, but you're talking about an offensive and defensive line who have more weight on their frame, who are usually taller. Their sense of mechanic and movement, yeah, of course they can hit, of course they can be aggressive, but nowadays to be able to be competitive, they have to be almost just as speedy to match up with some of those guys that are coming for them that they're assigned to hit and to block.
Yeah, and is the guy that is laying out 2 vicious hits a game, is he missing like 12 assignments? So, the consistency of play, knowing your position, knowing your technique, and obviously playing fundamental football in between the opportunities. And there's very few in a football game, actually, where you can take a vicious shot at somebody legally. But
Yep.
so there's a lot to that. All right, our buddy Jackson is stopping by. Jackson, what's going on tonight?
Oh, it's going pretty good, Mark. How's it going tonight, LeeAnn?
Going good. Prepping up for that Max Sutter commitment coming up. Interesting cast of characters and all that good stuff.
Oh man, that's gonna be a wild ride tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Central Time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Yeah, Max Sutter changed the time on us. He was like, "Nope, I'm gonna make this 6 hours later."
Which usually means
this one.
You weren't invited. Well, you need to come on by. It's your network. We just live on it.
Invitation's there. You want to come on in? Come on in, Mark. No worries, man.
No, you guys can handle it, I'm sure.
But usually in the recruiting world, when a recruit pushes back a time or even a day, we know that some team is making a late push, or there's a little bit of, hey, I was set, but now something else or someone else has come to the table. So it's going to be an interesting cast. Of course, it's Illinois, Alabama, Ole Miss, and who am I missing in there? Is it Georgia?
Nope, Ohio State.
Ohio State. I knew it was a red flag.
Forget about the Buckeyes.
Let's not forget about the Buckeyes, who are one of the top tight ends in the country, another position that there's been a lot of dominoes falling. Not a lot of tight ends have been talking about this class, but Sutter definitely one of those kids. It's definitely at the top of the board for some big programs tomorrow. And we'll see. He may come on there may be a late push, and he may say, hey, I might be pushing back that recruitment. It's definitely become a popular thing for some of these top recruits as the dominoes fall or as plans change.
Well, I can tell you this, there's some breaking news, but it's good news for the Ohio State. And as the chat's pointing out, I got this notification from Hayes Fawcett on 3 that class of 2026 offensive tackle Aaron Thomas has committed to Ohio State over Texas, Texas A&M, Florida State, and Washington. He's going to be really happy in Columbus, Ohio.
Nice.
The linemen are coming off the board, of course. I wasn't sure what kind of crowd we were going to have. The NBA draft going on. For those who follow baseball, of course, college baseball, the Bayou Bengals doing it once again in the College World Series. But of course, the portal's hot for baseball right now. So it's a lot of recruiting going on.
Jackson, did you say Aaron Thomas?
Aaron Thomas, that's correct.
Out of Arizona?
Yep, Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay. It happens so quickly, and you are on top of it so much that when I checked out his page, it still had him uncommitted. And then after you confirmed that just a second ago, boom, just popped up Ohio State commit.
Oh, man. I guess they're trying to keep up with Aaron Thomas as much as On3 is.
Look at that. Look at that frame right there. 6'7", 300 pounds. I haven't had a chance to watch his film, but I mean, this is probably a guy who they're gonna, use the inside. Most of these offensive tackles, they can transition from center to guard. So I'm not sure really what Ohio State needs as far as the offensive line. But again, not you can see from the stars there, he may not be one of the highest ranked, but definitely, I'm sure from watching his film, I'll be able to get in a few clicks in a few seconds to see exactly why Ohio State picked up. But a big day for the big day for the guys that uh up front coming off the board. Like I said, we were talking a little bit about Texas A&M having success. Jackson, of course, getting that number one recruiting class as far as SEC schools and the number two overall class. But they had two big offensive linemen commit today in Avery Morcho and of course Zach Kemp out of right there in Texas. So the Aggies definitely rolling. Mike Elko definitely on the move. Alabama also. All the SEC schools, of course, staging themselves for some good recruiting and commitments ahead. A lot of exciting things happening.
Well, I like Ole Miss's chances, going to an SC title game more than Texas A&M's because, like, at A&M, they always come up short of a conference title. I mean, they can do a great job at recruiting all they want, but hopefully Mike Elko can change that narrative a little bit. But we'll wait and see what happens over the next few years. If he can't get things rocking and rolling in College Station, I don't think anybody can. It's like the Bears with their quarterback situation. If Caleb Williams can't fix the situation for the Bears, nobody can.
Yeah, I think Mike Elko will really get to see from his first year to his second year as players come back that were out of the picture. See how this transfer portal class, of course, another elite recruiting class that won't step foot until next year, but still, I think Mike Elko has kind of brought the Texas A&M kind of down from the Jimbo Fisher era and really grounded them a little bit more. I think he is more in line with the roots and history of what Texas A&M is about, and I think him taking that more low key kind of approach is really going to help the Aggies get that consistency. I think that was the biggest thing across the board. There was just a lot. I think there was too much going on in College Station and not enough continuity from players and coaches, and I think that really affected the way that their talent and everything really wasn't able to translate. So again, like you said, Jackson, we'll see if Mike Elko can finally get a class that is not just number one on paper, but again, that can translate onto the field and finally get him out of that slump, especially in the SEC. But we shall see.
But on the bright side, Cam Honesty and Cannon Torres bring that magic on Aggies Live on Texas A&M at the Voice College Football Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And channel link is in the chat.
One guy I'm excited to see come back. He's a kid that I've watched and was part of his recruiting process. You guys heard me talk a lot about him early on. Of course, he was injured as Reuben Owens, known out of El Campo, Texas, known here in Texas as the Black Unicorn, one of the fastest kids in the state of Texas, broke all sorts of high school records, of course, coming back from injury. He had a few reps last season, but full and healthy. Really excited to see because I think that this is the moment when Texas A&M backfield is going to get explosive when Reuben Owens gets a hold of that ball. I'm telling you, folks, it really is magic. He really lives up to that name as the Black Unicorn. Excited that the Aggies are able to get him back and really utilize him more along with some of these other transfer portals. Seems like I think that they're going to have a good situation with Marcel Reed kind of settling in. And I think that it'll be interesting to see, but excited to see what the Aggies will do here, this season in College Station. But it's got to be better than what's been there, what's been lurking before, to say the least, hopefully.
Oh, agreed. Two recruits I've had on my mind is Jamarian Gordon, who committed to North Carolina today. And I've looked at Jamari Brooks, where he committed to Georgia. And yesterday, on yesterday's edition of Alabama Primetime Live, Coach Smoot and Coach Smoot thinks there's a possibility that Alabama flips Brooks from Georgia. Is there a possibility of that, LeeAnn?
I think there always is a possibility, especially when you do have two SEC schools. I think we saw today, especially with the quarterback situation, Alabama and Oregon getting their quarterbacks in this 2026 class. I think when Oregon, when Bryson Baker made the commitment to Oregon today, I think that really opened up the door for Kentucky, like we were talking earlier. And I think this is the same situation. I think that a lot of the schools are going to be going head to head. And remember, much like I said with Joey O'Brien committing to Notre Dame, I call that one from the jump, but I still believe in recruitments like that. And then recruitments that are heated, especially between two SEC schools. I think as we see maybe some other commitments coming in, some announcements being made where those two schools are in play for the same position, I believe that's where we're going to see a lot of. So I definitely think that there is a possibility for a flip. There always is a possibility for a flip, especially, I mean, we've seen Florida State have a ton of success flipping players in the last 24 hours in this last week. So again, I do believe that in recruitments like that, in these type of positions, as other commitments are made, I really think that it makes room either to keep a commitment intact or to definitely a possibility of flip. So I agree there. I think that there's still a chance that he gets flipped. And like I said, that's a recruitment when two SEC schools are involved like that, and with so many players, coming down to those two schools, it's going to get saturated at some point. Some guys are going to say, hey, you know what? Too many guys at that position or at that current school. I think I'm going to try to go a different direction because, again, as much as NIL plays, as much as it's great to play in the SEC, these kids want to go play. Most of the kids I talk with that are going to some of these other unexpected programs is they want, first of all, fit culture, but second of all, they want to go play immediately. They want to have the opportunity to play early on. So again, that's why I think that as the dominoes fall for some of these other schools, especially the SEC, I think a lot of the same schools are looking to build in the same positions, mostly in the secondary. And I feel like some of those positions, as they get saturated in one program, a lot of these kids don't be surprised if they're going into the other programs to kind of fill in the spots because they want playing time. They want to get seen. And it may not be their number one choice, like that kid committing to UNC. That may be not his number one school, but he goes to UNC, and I'll say it again. He gets the opportunity, he gets to play, he gets to be on film, and that's going to be more valuable down the road if he decides to go another path because he had playing time, he's seen in film, and college coaches are going to say, hey, this kid didn't go sit on the bench, he didn't redshirt, he got opportunity to play. So we know he can adapt and he can adjust, he's more mature, and they're going to go after him, and he's going to become more valuable regardless if he was a 3-star, 4-star coming out of high school versus that top 4 or 5-star kid that they're saying, hey, we know he's going to cost a lot of money. We really haven't seen what he's going to do. So again, a lot of factors that go in, and I can see why a lot of these kids are going to go to places that maybe aren't their number one choice, because in the end, that could be the better situation for them.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens for the rest of this summer. And I'll be getting out of here, telling everybody about the magic of the Mac Sutter commitment watch party that's tuning in tomorrow night. Thursday night's going to be a wild ride. And I've got a feeling there's going to be many more watch party commitments coming soon from the Voice Network.
I agree, because I think this whole first week of July, there's a lot of commitments, a lot of guys pushing up their commitments because now they've kind of settled in, had time to take off these official visits and really settling. So yeah, stay tuned. I'm sure there'll be more watch parties to come, and we'll make sure to invite Mark to all of them.
Oh, that's the plan. I mean, it's kind of like, it'd be kind of like having Stan Lee on the Marvel movies, where it's like he's there every five minutes. Like that'd be awesome right there.
You two and the others can take care of it. It's in good hands, I know. But this is Jackson's brainchild coming up with the watch party for the commits. That's awesome. Love it.
I'm always going to make sure come up some ideas here and there. I mean, I'm always cooking up something.
As soon as Jackson chimed in with that one, I just texted back in caps. Love it.
There we go. Well, everybody, I'll be seeing y'all tomorrow. Y'all stay safe, stay cool, stay away from this miserable heat. I mean, the Bama heat, it got me wore down. I mean, I've got like a liquid IV rocking and rolling.
I know the Texas heat isn't any better. I feel like, yeah, you might as well be in a sauna as soon as you go out. No joke.
Oh.
I was on the phone with somebody from Ohio today. It's hotter there than it was here by like 5 degrees.
Oh my goodness.
Note to self, go swim in a pool and play Margaritaville by old Jimmy, man.
There you go.
Good stuff.
Thanks, Jackson. All right, let's keep it rolling here. We've got our buddy Edward. Just want to make sure he's heard because he says, I hurry home to catch this show. Good for you,
Well,
Edward.
thank you for
We
that.
appreciate you. All right. Well, we saw it last year in the SEC, both in Austin and then at the SEC championship game, Georgia and Texas fighting for supremacy in the SEC on the field last year. They could be doing the same this fall, but in between, fighting for commits, including Chase Calicut.
Chase Calicut has been one of the most sought after recruits nationally in this crew. There was, of course, Michigan that seemed to be lurking, but from what we're hearing, it looks like this is going to be a photo finish, a battle till the end for the Georgia Bulldogs, and of course the Texas Longhorns for the talented North Shore cornerback. Of course, we know North Shore is what is another place, high school in that Houston area. I've had a chance to see Calicut all last fall, and of course this off season. Man, this kid is just a highlight reel. Some of the things that he's really looking for, just overall that he's talked about, is development is the primary factor for the teams he's looking at, and he already knows that whatever college he goes to, he really wants to be able to set himself up to go to the NFL. I mean, this kid, he's got that 6'3" frame, 190 as we can see there, but he's got a 6'7" wingspan. He is lethal. It is when you watch him work, whether he's working at North Shore, and the thing about North Shore is those kids, no matter what side of the ball you get on, they have ridiculous speed. No matter at what position, even the linemen have some crazy speed. But Chase Calicut is just one of those guys that makes it. He is lethal when it comes to dissecting an offense. He is hard mismatch when it comes to receivers, and he's extremely gifted at creating separation. He's one of the best mirror guys that I've seen play in the secondary. Again, he is going to be an elite pickup. But again, from what we're hearing, and he will be making his decision Friday. So Friday, he will either be a Texas Longhorn or a Georgia Bulldog. But again, there are still plenty of programs vying. But what we're hearing from him is that it's down to the burnt orange and of course that Georgia red. So again, Chase Calicut about to come off the board, one of the most talented guys, like I said, extremely lethal in that secondary, and look forward to seeing him. We'll be heading out again for kickoff this fall with North Shore. We had the opportunity, like I said, to kick off the season with them and watch them through the playoff run. One of the best teams to come out of Houston. Just talk about a dynasty. And he's already rocking those Georgia colors in red and white. So we'll see if he'll continue that at the next level. But again, he's extremely just meticulous. And like I said, he's one of the best cover guys in the 2026 class overall that I've seen. And he's just extremely difficult and creates a lot of chaos, but one of the, extremely gifted in causing that separation that I talk about that you look for when it comes to an elite corner. Again, knows how to separate himself. A lot of great corners in this class, but I will say he's probably one of the most elite corners in this 2026 class. Speed, agility, size, everything. And like I said, that 6'7" wingspan, 6'7" wingspan doesn't hurt either.
Tell your friends, tell your family, get on social media, let people know that LeeAnn and I and all of you, we all get together every Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern time on the move. And we check out the latest from high school football recruiting. And earlier tonight, we were on the Miami show, and Canes fans to get the number one defensive lineman in the country, James Johnson, who has determined when he's going to make his announcement.
He has pushed up. He was going to make it a little bit later, but like they say, when you know, of course, it's been a big week for defensive and offensive linemen. Can't get it done without the big guys up front. James Johnson definitely is one of the most elite linemen, and overall one of the most elite players again in this recruiting class. It's down to Florida, Georgia, Miami, and Texas that remain in the hunt for to land him. He's moved up his recruitment date to June 28th. He's taken officials to all these earlier in June, and then he took a last minute late push from the Longhorns to close out the season, to close out the official visit season this last weekend. So again, it's going to be interesting to see that we're hearing a lot of buzz, but again, he's out of Miami, looking to keep the talented defensive lineman. Like I said, not only is he talented on the defensive front, he's one of the top players coming out of the state of Florida, of course, out of Miami powerhouse Northwestern there. So of course, Miami's been making a strong push, has been very consistent in his recruitment. But from what we're hearing, the school to watch in this one, and like Dan was saying earlier, when it comes to defensive, is historically you can't help but think about the Georgia Bulldogs. And for me, in this race, from what we're hearing, the Georgia Bulldogs are the favorite to land James Johnson. And I really like where they stand after the official visit season, and just kind of where they've been and where they see him. Johnson's role, I believe he's going to be another instant impact player that definitely will have the opportunity to compete for Kirby Smart down in the trenches. So again, while Miami has been consistent across the board, looking to keep in-state talent James Johnson, for what I'm hearing and what the intel tells me, I really think that Georgia's the team right here to beat and is in the edge right now.
Here we go. Adam checking in tonight. Adam, we appreciate you being here. Thank you for the contribution. I am guessing there's a theme here, or maybe two that we've seen before, but Adam says, why should we give substantial weight to these quote unquote star ratings, and what quantifiable data enables us to predict what recruits will be impact players? Drew Aller threw the ball to Notre Dame with 38 seconds left.
You gotta love Adam with the Drew Aller, and yeah, I'll tell you right
there. I'm
gonna
have to look that up and verify that. I'm not sure if I've ever heard that before. I'll have to check that out.
And I'll give you my take with rankings and stars and rating and quantifiable data. Like I tell my recruits, like I tell their moms, like I tell their talent. Stars and rankings matter, but they don't matter when it comes to really evaluating talent. I've seen plenty of kids that are 4 stars that don't translate at the next level, not because they're not athletic, but simply because they don't fit into a certain scheme. They are overly coached. So I personally don't believe that you should base or evaluate on stars. Those are just means to an end. They're a metric system. But for me, when I'm looking at a talent and evaluating talent, much like coaches are, most of the kids right now that are getting a ton of offers that are actually not ranked, and they're getting high profile offers, is because we see them in live reps. And that's really where I take a lot of my accounting, is when I see these kids in live reps. And I always say, game film can do a lot, Adam. And I take game film until I can see a kid one-on-one for what it is. You can only do so much in game film, just like you can only do so much when you see a kid do combine drills. Plenty of times I've seen a lot of speedy athletic kids that can run for a fast 40, but just because I see a kid that runs a fast 40 that plays wide receiver or a receiver position, does that mean I'm going to jump on him? No, because again, I look for other measurables. The way that he knows how to transition, how he cuts corners, how he runs routes, how his hands are, how his hands placement. Most times, if you ever see me on a sideline looking for certain positions, especially when it comes to receivers, I look at the way their feet move. And I'm looking down. And it kind of can throw people off, because again, I evaluate, I look for different things. I look for details. I look for those things that separate these kids. So yeah, as far as stars and all that backs them, for me, as far as for my personal take, when I evaluate talent, I take them for what they are, but but they don't sell me on a kid until I see a kid in live reps. When I evaluate a kid, I take from what I've seen live reps, and then that's where I grade my opinion. I go in with a blind eye. I've seen plenty of 5-star kids that are athletic, but when I see them, especially at the quarterback position, when I have them and I measure them up against fellow 5-stars, and then I have the opportunity to measure them up against 3 and 4-star kids, that's what I use as the metric, because I have all types of talent and athletic abilities across the board. I see how they compete individually and against each other, and then that's where I take my take from. So I use rankings and stars for a grain of salt in my personal evaluations, but I really take what I see from live reps, watching these kids in different settings, I like to see kids in game situations. I like to see kids in individual settings. I like to see kids in camp settings. I also like to see kids a lot. Um, People can say what they want about 7-on-7, but what I will say for certain positions, I do like to see kids thrown into these situations because remember, there's a comfort when you play with your team. You get to practice with them, you know them, you build relationships with them, and you can see talent there. But for me, one of the biggest things to really separate those kids, to really see if they're really that elite or that blue chip talent, or at least have that potential, is putting them in a situation where they are with other high profile players or just other good talented players, and see how they react and how they can be able to adapt and adjust in situations with players that they don't normally work with, and how they can make things happen in that.
And now we've got Adam, of course, is wanting me to respond to the Drew Aller portion of the comment. So what I need to do is I'm going to tape like a 30-second response is what I'm going to do. I'm going to tape a 30-second response, and I'm just going to play it every time Adam asks about it. I'm just going to play the same response because I think I've addressed Drew Aller's interception, I don't know, about 57 times. So I know, was it today? I get these shows mixed up. Today I was citing all sorts of legendary quarterbacks and game-losing interceptions that they had thrown in playoff games and major bowl games, national championship games. I was going through all sorts of bad plays by guys like Brett Favre and John Elway and other guys like that. You'll enjoy this, Adam. We'll do this for you. This week, as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So there you go. Are you happy? There's Drew Aller after the interception against Notre Dame. Adam coming back with this one. Given the prevalence of CTE and the increased size, strength, and speed of the players, are you concerned that football poses unreasonable risks to players that will impact them after football? How do you address this? Whoa.
No, and I'm right there with you. Yeah, of course, even though there has been a better grasp of taking, more precautions, with helmets, especially sensors and all that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a high risk with players, and that's really what I feel like that's something we're going to have to look towards for the future is what we can do to continue to better the medical aspect and provide things, and not even just during football games, not just during practice, but also life after football, with healthcare and different kind of things and different incentives, so as much as we want to play NIL is a thing, I think that down the road we're also trying to make sure that players are able to receive healthcare and type of benefits and things like that after they leave this game of football, because that's most of the time when these athletes discover, all the repercussions of being a player. So yeah, no, there's always going to be a lot of risk to players, I believe, and I think that we're going to have to continue to take certain measures as technology has evolved to continue to incorporate those games to make sure that we not only protect players but also have training staffs also get trained for different type of things, and also I think coaches have done a lot better job of making sure that they don't just allow athletes to play injured. I know that we've seen that a lot, especially, and I understand that. I think that there's always been that pressure. And I think too, as natural athletes, I've worked with plenty of athletes that have pushed themselves through games, not because our coaches force them, but it's just they're a natural competitor. It's really hard to tell your star player, hey, you just took a hit, you might have a concussion, you got to sit out, especially when the game's on the line. I think that that mentality and stuff. But I think that across the board, just much like we have addressed the importance of addressing mental health within our athletic programs and coaches making that more of a centered issue, I think we'll have to continue that as far as what we do down the road to continue to help protect our players.
Well, Adam, I will say it this as well, that football is not a contact sport. Basketball is a contact sport. Lacrosse is a contact sport. Soccer is a contact sport. football is a collision sport, and that's just the nature of the sport. And I think we have taken about as many measures as can be taken in regards to rules. So we know that the rules are much different than they were just even 10 years ago, let alone 50 years ago, to protect the players. We know that the headgear is remarkably better than it was. Shoot, the high school football helmet that I wore, oh my word, compared to what they have now is is and that those things needed to be addressed. And as the Rod Farva mentions in the chat, just the overall padding and everything. We've taken all sorts of things away from the game in addition to the rules regarding the hitting, the rules regarding kickoffs, the rules regarding all sorts of things to eliminate special teams plays, the number of plays in a game, all of those things. And I think LeeAnn addresses a lot of great things in addition to what is the obvious, but the health and the care of the players, yes, after they get done playing. All right. Next up, we've made our way through Miami and on to Paris Melvin Jr. This is a guy that we've talked about considerably in recent weeks, and he is in the athlete category.
This is a kid that I've also had the opportunity to see on several circuits. I mean, every time you catch his tape, you watch him in live reps, he leaves you just asking, what can this kid not do in the field? I talked a little bit about him on our recruiting crew earlier this week. This is a kid who played running back, quarterback, wide receiver, and cornerback all season long. Another talented kid, of course, with none other than that Houston, Texas area, a plethora of cool talent. There, we knew that there was a lot of favorites. Of course, he took several official visits, but he's officially announced that he's down to 4 schools: Arizona, Baylor, of course, Houston, and Willie Fritz, the hometown favorite. They've also been working in overtime to keep the talented 4-star athlete. Again, he's one of those kids that really defines athlete by his name. And of course, the final school being Ole Miss. Of course, if Ole Miss could grab and keep that Texas sled and Texas pipeline, Paris Melvin definitely would be a huge win. Of course, closing out his official visit season down there, it was Houston, and then of course Ole Miss. He's the number 10 athlete, as we see in there in this 2026 class, the number 20 overall prospect to come out of the slate. Like I said, this is another gem of a two-way player. We've really seen the emergence, Mark, of just these talented two-way players, these multi-sport athletes. During his junior campaign, playing all those positions that I mentioned just a minute ago, he rushed for 1,091 yards, 18 tutties on 7 per yards per carry. He completed 3 of 5 passes for 52 yards and one touchdown, had 1 INT. He had 22 receptions for 352 yards, 3 tutties again on 16 yards per catch. And that's on the offensive side of the ball. Flipped on the defensive side of the ball, he's had 13 tackles, 1 TFL, and 1 INT. And again, this is a kid who has had a ton of experience on varsity. He's been playing for that Cy Springs varsity team since his freshman year. And again, it is no question that on his senior season, like I said, offensively, when you watch him, this is a guy, a player. He's a game changer. He can turn the tide of a game super quickly. He's just super dynamic when you put the ball in his hands. Again, not only is he impressive on the football field, like we say about much of these extremely athletic, talented players, their quickness and speed comes from their track background. Again, I think he's just really versatile kind of playmaker. You can put him, like I said, at the running back position, the wildcat option, a slot receiver. I mean, if you're talking about Lane Kiffin right here, I mean, he's an offensive dream. When you can put him, like I said, when I say you can put Paris Melvin in any situation, and he's explosive, he's just that kid, and he's really good at adapting and excelling in various roles. Like I said, another invaluable asset. And just if you look at the teams he's really interested, he's going to a place where he knows that he can not only develop, but he's going to have the opportunity to play. It's clear, especially this is a kid who probably could go and be an instant impact player at some top SEC schools. But if you notice, Arizona, Baylor, Houston, and Ole Miss, really the more high profile program in all this as far as his skill set would be Ole Miss. So again, this is a talented kid that's definitely taken his time in recruiting, but he's really looking for development. And you can tell from his choices that and his visits that he's really looking for a place where he knows that he not only he can develop, but he's going to shine. And again, he's got a really unique, he's really explosive. Like I said, that track background definitely shows. He has a really unique movement style when you watch him play that I think just really adds to his overall playmaking versatility. And every opportunity he gets to top, I mean, he's just razor sharp. He navigates through defensive without positions. And I think that that comes from him being able to be on the flip side, his time playing quarterback. I mean, he really knows how to read speed, changes his direction like a seasoned pro, like he was in the NFL already. Again, he keeps defenders guessing, and every time he touches the ball, Mark, he's just a dynamic force. And like I said, on that defensive side of the ball, he didn't get a lot of reps, this past season, but I mean, he is a chaos maker. He's just that athlete that when you put him in, he knows how to really distract an offensive player and really get him out course. He knows how to dissect that opposition. He's got a really impressive ability to break the ball, Mark, and he's really just a keen sense of cover awareness, extremely high football IQ, has also had experience on special teams. So the list goes on and on. But again, Harris Melvin Jr., after following some strong official visits, having a lot of good things to say about, he's down to Arizona, Baylor, Ole Miss, and of course the favorite, Houston, looking to add another high-profile in-state player. We'll see when it's all said and done who's going to win. But again, some very interesting final contenders for one of the most talented athletes coming out of the Lone Star State, and one of the extremely talented, versatile two-way player. Like I said, not many kids can really execute the way I've seen Paris Melvin execute at cornerback, quarterback, wide receiver, and running back. So again, somebody's going to win big, and we'll see where he goes.
All right. Let's go to a couple game changers on defense coming off the edge. These are the guys that obviously have that explosiveness at the snap of the football and can come off the edge and get to the quarterback in a hurry and change games. And the first one would be Landon Barnes.
Landon Barnes out of powerhouse Duncanville High School in Dallas, Texas, in Duncanville, Texas, by the DFW area. He's one of the top edges in the country. There's been a lot of programs that have recruited him. It's been down to the wire. That towering frame, really explosive, just really good at coming off the line of scrimmage. Of course, I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time in Duncanville watching him this past season. But, from what we're hearing from the recruiting trail, and as the official visit season has winded down, and he's kind of taken time to really see what schools, it looks like the schools to watch in this one: Ole Miss, Ohio State, Washington, and LSU. So definitely some strong picks in there. He's talked about, again, in the popular phrase, that most of these high profile guys like Landon Barnes, because they come from such higher profile programs like Duncanville, is the first thing they talk about, is they want to go to a place where they know that they're going to be high developed. Most of the guys, when I talk about the kids from Duncanville, they are coached, and that program is run at such a high level already, almost mirroring a collegiate level. They want to go into their next future home looking for that same place. They want to go look for a place of development. And he also talked about, having a team that he can really connect with. It's really on the same page. And of course, ultimately, every kid out there, every elite, kid out there wants to go to a place where they can really see themselves winning a national championship. So Landon Barnes, after a hefty list of offers, coming out of one of the best high school programs in Texas. No official date of commitment has been set, but it looks like Ohio State, Washington, the Bayou Bengals, and the Ole Miss Rebels are the ones to watch.
There you go. Landon Barnes off the edge, looking at those schools, and he will be quite the catch, as will another edge rusher in KJ Ford.
KJ Ford, Kevin Ford if you guys know him that way. Also out of Powerhouse Duncanville, another top edge, of course, looking to set the stage after a busy official visit season. Some of the schools that we're hearing to watch are, of course, none other than Alabama, Florida, Ohio State, and Texas A&M. We know that Texas A&M has really been making a strong push along with Alabama. So again, Kevin Ford still kind of not set on the date of when he will commit, but again, definitely looking at some high profile programs, obviously mostly SEC programs, but of course you cannot overlook Ohio State when it comes to if you are an edge rusher. And again, another elite kid coming out of Duncanville, Texas, one of the most sought out edges with that towering frame, is down to Alabama, Florida, Ohio State, and Texas A&M.
Great stuff out of you as always, LeeAnn. We appreciate LeeAnn being here as we conclude the show. We'll let some highlights roll of one KJ Ford, and again, a couple edge rushers coming out of Texas, and we'll see where they land. And we want to remind everyone that you can catch LeeAnn's work on the Rebel Walk, also on Cat's Wire. A ton of production out of LeeAnn on Cat's Wire, and of course, we get her on Wednesday nights here at the Voice of College Football. So again, if you are just joining us, or maybe you haven't caught us at certain times during these on the move shows, keep in mind that LeeAnn's work includes scouting, journalism, and it all started at Brown University, and she's been working as a national recruiting analyst here at the Voice of College Football. We've been glad to have her for almost a year. And of course, she's the director of football recruiting at the Rebel Walk, and now has added Cat's Wire to her resume. But it's not just as a journalist, but doing an excellent job again across the board and bringing an extremely unique perspective as somebody who has worked in this industry for a long, long time in a number of areas. And I have hit a key that, there we go. Finally, I couldn't find where to get the graphic off the screen, but there we go. So catch LeeAnn on Twitter, and then you can just go ahead and you can follow all of her work to the various sites. There you see it right there, LeeAnn Herring, RW on Twitter.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in to the Primetime Show. I know some of you guys probably are eagerly awaiting on as the NBA draft unfolds tonight, but maybe I will stop in tomorrow for a recruiting coup. If we get some, I'm sure we will have some dominoes turn. And of course, I won't be heading to OT7 like I had planned, but definitely be getting a lot of film, a lot of playmakers. We do have some guys who will be announcing their commitment live from South Florida. A lot of the playmakers we've been talking about, so definitely giving live updates, and also maybe giving some rivals. 5-star camp, of course, is going on right now, so I probably will hop on Thursday and Friday to, don't forget to tune into Mark's show, the college football show, and bring you some more crew news. But thanks for tuning in, and hope to see y'all next week.